This podcast is not intended to provide any investment advice. The opinions expressed here by either the hosts or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of PSA, Collectors Holdings, or any of their affiliates. Any discussion of collectible values in the past or present is not a guarantee of future performance.
Hey everyone, Ryan Green here, and today we are back with another installment of guest submissions here on the PSA Pod. Guest submissions features in-depth hobby conversations. We'll be welcoming a variety of guests into our studio, from prominent expert leaders within the collector's family to respected hobby voices and personalities across all genres. The goal is to inform and entertain from several different angles, whether it's discussing product developments and enhancements that improve the PSA customer experience, or just simply talking shop and collecting from different perspectives. Collectors of all levels and experience will enjoy what lies ahead. Today's guest, I am very excited to welcome in. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. This is Tim Wong, Research Manager here at PSA. And Tim, first off, thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I mentioned in the intro, the goal is to inform and entertain, and I think we're going to really inform people today, because one thing we're aiming to do this year is really give a peek behind the curtains, behind some of the processes here at PSA when customers are submitting orders here. And as I mentioned, you are the research manager here at PSA, and obviously research is one of the first places an order ends up once it arrives here at PSA with your team. So before we get into all that, how long have you been here at PSA, and kind of what drew you to working here?
I'm coming up on 6 years. And before I came to the company, I was looking to make a change out of finance, which I had done for like 9 years. And I'm a lifelong collector, very passionate about sports cards. And so when I found out that PSA was basically in my own backyard, 15 minutes away, I decided to apply.
And it's worked out. You've been here for 6 years, and like I said, you know, you're just like me in that we're both collectors. We've been collectors our whole lives. Tell a little bit about your collecting story. So you said you've been collecting a long time. What mostly does your collection revolve around?
I started with baseball. I played t-ball and all that when I was younger. So baseball was kind of the natural first cards that I ever collected. Jumped around a little bit into basketball in the 90s, and then a little bit of football into the 2000s. These days, I'm all over the place. I love hockey right now. It's kind of a fun one. Love the pre-war vintage stuff.
That's one thing I love is I've run into you at shows a couple of times, and I'll like ask you, what are you looking for? And it's always something different. And I love that. And it's something I don't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just depends on what's catching, my attention for the month or so.
Now, you do have one very consistent piece of your collection.
Yeah. For the longest time, I've PC'd USC football. And within, I think when it started 2018, Amon-Ra St. Brown came to the team. And I was like, wow, this guy has a name of an Egyptian god. Like, that's cool. And then I found out a little bit more information about him. He went to the same high school as I did, Mater Dei. And just learning more about his family, his brothers, his father, Mr. Universe, and it was really neat just focusing in on him. So right now I've just been collecting a ton of Amon-Ra, and his team, the Detroit Lions, they did so well this past year that it's been more exciting, even more so than what I thought it would be.
It's a good time to be collecting Amon-Ra is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. Right now I'm hovering almost at 300 or so certified autos. So it's been a fun ride so far.
That's amazing. I love seeing what you've got in your PC, and it's just, I love super focused player collections. So yours, of people I know at this company, yours is kind of a North Star. I love that. Well, so as I mentioned with the guest submissions series, we love having PSA experts into the studio to give a peek behind the curtains at, what they do, largely for the purpose of educating customers and offering transparency into our processes. The research team that you lead here at PSA, it's a large team, but that's where a customer's order is when you submit it and it gets entered in your account and you see that it's in research and ID, it's with your team. So let's just start with a very blanketing question here. What exactly happens in research and ID when a customer's order is there?
So basically, every item that comes through our doors, whether it's a card, a ticket, a pack, even some sports and TCG coins, our purpose is to identify exactly what it is, and then we pair it up with a specification in our database. And if it doesn't exist, then we go out, try to research, figure out what it is. Sometimes we have to reach out to manufacturers. Sometimes we reach out to industry experts. Then we create the labels, the flips, and then we move it on from there.
So it's pretty straightforward, but within that, there can be a lot of detail and a lot of intricacy, I guess is the best way to put it. So, first off, the research team here, it's a big team, but one of the coolest things about it from my perspective is just how wide it is in terms of expertise across all genres. So you've got experts pretty much literally on everything in that team.
We do have a lot of very passionate collectors on our team, and we have some that aren't very big collectors, but they're also very good researchers. And it's one of the things that, we have a big team, one of the bigger teams in operations. But because we have so much coverage, we're able to move through volume quite a bit.
What are some of the things that a member of the research team is looking for when a submission lands on their desk? Regardless of expertise, let's just, I guess for argument's sake, you're a big Amon-Ra St. Brown collector. A modern football submission lands on a researcher's desk. What is their process? What's being looked for? How are they kind of working through that order while it's with them?
So the first step that we do is we look at the order form. We make sure that the right number of cards are in the order that are present right in front of us. Then we go line to line, checking to make sure that if it's pre-spec'd, we're confirming that it's correct. If it's not pre-spec'd, then we have to go and figure it out or create the spec itself. And also with the images, the first few images, if there's issues with that, and there sometimes are, we'll take them down or manipulate them to make sure that they're corresponding correctly.
So when we talk about spec data that if I'm submitting 2020 Panini Prism football cards, odds are pretty much every card from that set is in our database. But say 2023 Prism football, which just came out a few weeks ago, that's kind of what you're referencing, where some of those rare parallels and things like that just might not be in there yet.
Correct. And a lot of the manufacturers these days, they love these Easter eggs, these unannounced parallels. So a lot of the times we're not really sure what they are. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the times we'll look up maybe breaks on YouTube or whatnot and see what product it's coming from. Is this legit? And some of the manufacturers, they even release some of the, certain parallels because it may not be on a checklist, but they release it later as part of like their rewards program or something, or a replacement.
And we'll talk more about the kind of the relationship with manufacturers a little bit later. But, like you said, there's, we're researching things in the hobby here sometimes, just like people are at home by going and, sometimes you do have to go in and watch breaks and see things and look up cards on eBay to see what is actually out there from a new release that might not have been included in what the manufacturer is announcing at the offset.
Absolutely. There's just so many different methods that we try to confirm anything that we're not sure about.
So one of the reasons I really wanted to have you join us early in this series this year, as we continue to work to ease the submission process, both on our website, on mobile for customers, is to discuss the process of adding card information, or as we call it here, spec data, to a submission that you're creating. So, we encourage customers to try and add card info and data to the best of their ability. And our team, we always tell people we can correct things on the back end that may have been entered incorrectly once it comes through research. That's, your team's specialty. If a customer is entering a card, and let's say they're entering a new release from, say, like Prism Basketball that just came out, what tips would you offer for customers who are adding these cards to submissions manually? Like, what are the things you want to just like at least make sure you put on there to keep things from getting bogged down with their order when it comes across a researcher's desk?
So some of the main things that we look for: year, the product or original product that it came from, set names, card number, players, subjects, even parallel information that you may know, or even the print run or the serial number. One thing that I would say is take a look of known checklists. There's a bunch of checklist sites out there, third-party checklist sites, and even the manufacturers do release quite a bit of checklists out there. Take a look of what those checklists say, and you might be able to line them up yourself.
But, if you happen to enter a green pulsar parallel as a green ice parallel, that's going to get corrected on our end. That's a pretty easy catch.
Yeah, and we do have various quality control steps too that are supposed to catch that should anything get by.
So what other, as the expert here from research at PSA, what are some other tips that you would give customers when creating submissions, packaging submissions, et cetera, to make sure that the research step just kind of moves as smooth as possible?
I'd say enter as much as you can on the OSC. That's one of the key things that makes things move just that much quicker. Even if it's the wrong parallel, it still helps. Organize your order. That's what I tell a lot of people. It used to be done by sport. Like submissions used to have to be separated out by sport, and we no longer require that. But it is one thing that actually makes things that much better. We have certain people who are hockey experts versus a basketball expert. And if you have to send them into the same order, at the very least, like keep them together, keep them organized that way. Same products, same parallels, things like that. Another thing that helps us quite a bit is don't put like tape on the card savers. Don't put like sticky notes. It makes things easier, quicker for us to move through, so we can identify the cards, clear views of both sides. And one thing that does happen every now and then is that like a pack might get shoved into a regular card order. Got to make sure that they're kept separate, because otherwise that has to go back to a different department to pretty much get fixed.
Okay. So those are all really helpful. So essentially, if you have multiple sports in one order, try to keep everything segmented as opposed to mixing and matching. Keep everything in order, same order it's in on the submission form. And yes, do not combine items into one submission.
Yeah, and that's what really helps us move your order just that much faster.
How long is an order typically? Let's say like a 50 card order comes through. I think to give people some scope on that, if an order is entered properly, everything's in order. How fast can something like that move across a researcher's desk?
As long as there's nothing that we have to reach out to a manufacturer about. We could be looking at as little as like 20 minutes for an order like that.
Yeah. Well, like you said, sometimes you guys do have to reach out to manufacturers. I think this is something people will be very fascinated about. What's kind of the relationship between PSA and manufacturers? Obviously, we're an independent, third-party authenticator and grader, but as, say, Topps is putting out new products, we have, and your team has, regular contact with Topps in terms of making sure we're getting checklists ahead of time, et cetera. What is that process kind of like?
So we have a great relationship with a lot of different manufacturers, a lot of different contacts that we've gotten over the years. And, one thing that we have to remember is it's not their day job really to, answer all our questions, all our inquiries, but they do a really, really good job about getting back to us.
I got to ask, because I'm super curious. Like, you guys research so many unique things. And I know when I've come over and seen you where you're working, like, I always feel like some of the most interesting things you have, like around your workstation, are super rare, like tickets that come through. What would you say, like, when you think of all the cool things you've had to actually go dig in and do research on here, like, what's a really cool item that comes to mind when you think of just really unique stuff that you've had to actually go do a lot of diligence on and find details about?
I think it was last year, we had this card basically from the 1800s, and it's known as a carte de visite. They're basically like little picture cards that you would trade with your friends back in the 1860s. And so the one that we had in particular was one of Abraham Lincoln. So, really neat subject matter. And it was also signed by Lincoln, which is even rarer. So what was cool about that is we did a lot of digging into the actual picture. We went to the Library of Congress. We talked to historians. We talked to photo experts just to make sure it's like, hey, is this a real picture? And then we also looked into the company that produced the picture or the little carte de visite. In the industry, a lot of them they refer to them as CDVs. And so through all that, we were able to figure out it's like, okay, this company called Brady's CDVs. They had a few different images that Lincoln did in that time period, but this one we were able to confirm. It's like, oh, we were able to trace it back to a specific era back then, and it was one of the coolest items that I think I've seen here.
So that order took a little longer than 20 minutes to research.
Definitely.
That's what we're saying. That's amazing. So you see legitimate pieces of history come in every now and then.
Absolutely.
Man, that's awesome. Okay, Tim. So last question here. Obviously, continuous improvement here at PSA in all areas of our operation is always a big focus. What are your biggest areas of focus within research for continuous improvement in 2024 and even beyond that?
One of our biggest focuses this year is going to be to expand our range of expertise, look for new consultants, strengthen our depth of expertise that we have even in the department itself right now. One thing that we want to do is utilize tech and AI to be a little bit faster, a little bit more accurate, and even be able to detect some counterfeits and reprints.
I think it's really interesting what you said about the range of expertise, and especially talking about outside consultants. While our team of full-time researchers here is vast and wide across genres, we really do also have, outside consultation on all kinds of items from all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to have the best experts out there in the field, we need to talk to the best experts. And we make a lot of those connections through this company, and we're able to lean on them for their knowledge.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us here on the PSA Pod. Really fascinated by what you do and what your team does here at PSA. So
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't wait to see more of the Amon-Ra St. Brown collection as it comes together.
Next year is going to be a good year for the Lions and Amon-Ra.
Is this your favorite time of year for football buying? Like, you're after the Super Bowl, you're heading up to the draft?
Oh, I'm every day.
So you have no off season?
Definitely not.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you again for joining us. That's Tim Wong, Research Manager here at PSA. I'm Ryan Green. Thank you for tuning in here on the PSA Pod, and we'll be back with more next week. Take care.